2.5 years ago, we got our first taste of humanity. 1 Million Voices has gone down as one of the quintessential Thomas Bergersen tracks, but the Humanity project has grown quite a bit in those 2.5 years, going from a 2-hour project to a 4-hour one to, well, now we're up to 7 hours across 7 individual albums.
Just sort of grew into this monstrosity.
You said it, Thomas. Now at last we're up to Chapter 4, which contains 1 Million Voices, as well as So Small, released 1.5 years ago when the whole series got delayed. And honestly, if the series stopped here, it would be something really satisfying. Somehow we have another whole 3 albums, including one that Thomas says is his favorite of the bunch. Now, the subject matter for this one was a little bit harder for me to grasp than the other ones based on Thomas's descriptions, and my initial expectations were something roughly along the lines of an album that Mr. Christopher Tin recently released, To Shiver the Sky, which is all about humankind's history with flight, culminating in Apollo, essentially. Highly recommend it if you're a fan of Thomas. Check this out. See? Based on the surprisingly spoilery posts from Thomas himself, it looks like we're going sci-fi with it, which is pretty cool. Thomas hasn't really done a sci-fi album necessarily, and I like sci-fi. So it's made of air about some alien air planet, is 1 Million Voices about creating a peaceful interspecies utopia like Star Trek. And I was definitely expecting music-wise something sounding maybe a bit like American Dream, a more orchestral sound. No. You know, I love speculating about this music, but it seems like I'm always completely wrong. Alright. This could fit right into Chapter 3. This is really peaceful. I have a feeling this is about as restrained as this album's going to get. This is really what I needed to hear today. I can already tell that So Small being at the end of the album is really gonna bring things full circle. Cool synths. I would be kind of unsurprised and quite delighted if this turned into some awesome dubsteppy electronica thing. Okay. Little like We Are One with historical speeches. It sounds really cool in this mix. Ooh, it sounds so cool. Let's do it! It's got an exploring the unknown vibe to it. Wouldn't be out of place in Star Trek. Very lush, very optimistic. That's what this album's been so far. This is totally what I thought the first 4 tracks were gonna be. Except it's only one of them. That's a great melody. Ooh. Still a bit of mystery. Cool. It sounds new. I haven't quite heard Thomas channel whatever kind of energy this is before. This sounds more like Thomas. It's so happy. Sing it, Beretta. Bit of a Nightwish vibe. Oh, it just... vocals turned into the synth. Yeah, I guess I wasn't expecting it to be this joyful. It sounded great the first time. That one's gonna be a grower once I get to know all those melodies. I am going to interpret this as exploring an alien planet. Yeah, there's this sense of like wonder and indeed curiosity. The instrumentation, the electronics, it's really intricate. Is there a bit of Thomas singing? Someone's singing. Let's go electronic. Okay, this is about to get big. Oh. Well, now I'm embarrassed. Who was that singing? Is that Thomas? Is it pitched up? Ooh, I want more of that. That was great. Wow. So, 1 Million Voices finally. I believe the original one was entirely sample-based. Yep, strings are a little more lush. You know That's all I know. Yeah, it is really weird. I'm now picturing this being like we're exploring all these friendly alien cultures instead of it celebrating a bunch of real-world cultures. I'd like to hear Thomas say something about it so I can put my mind at rest. That's so weird. It sounds just a little bit different. It's almost uncanny. I know of someone who went out of his way not to listen to 1 Million Voices this whole time it's been out in the wild. I hope he's really enjoying himself now. I imagine he is. Back to the mysterious stuff. Kind of an air sound effect. Feels like a new day dawning. Oh, those are water sounds, of course. Title. Ha. I regret that mistake. This album sounds more like a film score than usual from Thomas. That's hinting at something bigger. A vast shoreline, glide out into the water, past islands. A lot of big brass motifs on this album. Not often that Thomas puts the drums at the forefront that much. Ooh. Now this one sounds like it's gonna be a gut-wrenching one. Still has that mysterious sound. Oh. That's inspired, intimate, and unsettling. It sounds a little bit over-the-top awesome for being, like, mourning someone. Not sure what's going on. Okay, I think I get a little more what it was going for. It's actually losing someone in real time. That's a weird one. Provocative. Sounds like The Omen. Yeah, let's see just how unclassifiable this one is. So how is this depicting fire? I guess I'm picturing like a campfire casting shadows, you know, dancing licks of flame, almost playful. But be careful, because fire can burn. Getting more intense, getting more chaotic. I'm very bad at describing these things. Oh. Wonder what they're singing. And here we are. I was so desperate for this one to be released at the time that he did like a poetry video thing. It's this childlike perspective, grappling with the world. I haven't listened to it in a while, but I listened to it a lot back then. I had a reading assignment the night this was uploaded and just listened to it on repeat for hours. Yep, strings sound different. Is that new? Taking stock and taking in the weight of everything that's occurred so far. Those last two tracks were kind of a dip into less pleasant territory, I think. Whatever's going on, this the space exploration thing isn't really working out. Yeah, and at the time he was adamant this was not going to be on humanity. And it wasn't even on humanity as of chapter 1. It adds a lot of weight to everything that's come before. There used to be like a big squealing violin sound. So in light of everything we've experienced now, returning to that initial optimism, reflecting on it. Some alien sounds in it. Yeah, this was initially a humanistic anthem, and now we've encountered all this stuff out there, and that's being blended into our identity. Oh! Somehow I didn't see that coming. Thanks, Thomas. I love it. Oh. That is peaceful. Yeah, I also recall just leisure reading to this one for hours on repeat when it was released. My stories are all kind of the same, aren't they? Yeah, it's so stripped down. A lot of people thought this would be the opening track for sure because they've been opening with choir tracks so far. I don't really think so. Sparks wasn't really a choir one. I don't want it to be the same pattern for every album. But I was expecting it to be like somewhere in the middle, stop and reflect in the middle of the journey. But yeah, this works really well at the end. The immensity of it all. In keeping with Star Trek, this really gives me a feeling like it's saying the human adventure is just beginning. So how long until Chapter 5? Well, I've been listening to this album repeatedly over the last few days. I really, really like this one. It manages to have, a ton of styles and genres and creativity and inventiveness throughout it, much like Chapter 1, but it also sort of holds together more stylistically like Chapter 3. Like it's all one journey, an album that exceeds the sum of its parts. It's not just a collection of tracks. And despite my curiosity of just how much of it is meant to be sci-fi, I'm looking at it now a little more metaphorically, where this journey into space and what it maps onto in terms of real-world, present-day human emotional experience is something like gaining maturity. It starts off naive, very optimistic, a lot of curiosity, and there's discovery in the middle of the album, new experiences, and then about 2/3 of the way through there's more danger. There is a dark side to it, and there is suffering and hardship. And so it feels like there's a loss of innocence as discoveries are made, as you gain more knowledge about the world. But after grappling with some of these issues in Dear Mr. Alien, we get to the Rocket to the Moon reprise, which is straight up the original orchestral track, but with weird overdubbed elements. There's like these alien howls, and that's become corrupted. There's all these new experiences that have recontextualized it. And finally we plunge into the sudden electronic vocal climax. All these things are finally being reconciled, and the protagonist, if we will, is emerging triumphant. They've managed to cling on to that original identity, but they've also grown, and they've finally reached a point of contentment. So it's just really interesting to me how we have this very gradual arc throughout the album that kind of sneaks up on you in the second half. I think Thomas got the track order exactly right. The one track I'm still struggling to grasp a bit is Please Don't Go. There's this real urgency and desperation. It's almost like this larger-than-life horror, but there's just something so strange and provocative about it, almost bordering on tasteless, but I know it's done with complete sincerity, emotionally as bold as any instrumental choices Thomas has made. I was initially expecting Made of Fire to be instrumentally a super eclectic, unclassifiable track. It's more tonally, emotionally unclassifiable. There's the beauty and the aliveness of flames, but there's also this almost occult, disturbing, foreboding undercurrent to it. Really a spooky track. Listening to it right before bed, it's an interesting experience. So Chapter 2 is still my favorite for the time being. There are just individual tracks on there that I have a really strong connection to. Listening to them already makes me feel a bit wistful in a way that even Chapter 1 tracks don't. But boy, just beginning to end, Chapter 4 really is an experience. And I think that that experience overall is going to end up meaning just about as much to me as those individual potent tracks did. And also, I just want to point out that Thomas said this recently, and yeah, forget a Two Steps concert. I want to go see a Thomas Bergersen Humanity concert. I would drop anything for that experience. Although all my predictions to date have turned out to be completely wrong, I am going to guess that Chapter 5 will be released in January. So hopefully, I'll see you in January.